Alrighty, good morning everyone. Happy Earth Day and welcome to our virtual studio at Asana at Home. And we're so grateful that Kevin is here. I have Mrs. Locavore, who is a community herbalist and a Langley Field Naturalist and a dear friend. And then I have myself, Live Beautifully Yoga. So today, in honor of Earth Day, we're going to do a plant meditation and talk. This is something that Diana and I have been doing throughout the year last year and something that we'd love to bring to you. All of our donations today are going to support the Tree Foundation, which is an outdoor educational based company run by a beautiful woman who helps connect children to earth and the earth medicine and educate them on how they can keep our planet sustainable. So all donations will be going to them. And yeah, I will give it off to Diana to give our little intro and our disclaimer.
Sure, great. Good morning. Event, even though it's virtual, is being Musqueam, Katsi, Quantlins, Tsleil-Waututh, Stolo, Kutuna, Ketunaha, and I believe it's the Squamish Nation.
Yes.
Territory. And I also open up the talk with our disclaimer / health reclaimer. Because your good health is your right and your decision. The information discussed here and these topics is not intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice. It is provided for educational, entertainment purposes only. We are not doctors. Also seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health professionals before starting any new treatments or discontinuing an existing treatment. So we will start our talk with Amy guiding us into the plant with a meditation that will allow us to ground down and really hone our minds on the plant we're discussing today. Today it's dandelion. I see you've got one in your hair. I've got one hanging out in my pocket. I also have some Dandelion Leaf Tea.
Thank you, Amy,
for the beautiful cup.
Dandelion Leaf Tea.
Great. So after the intro of the plant meditation, Amy will lead us back to our existence, and we will discuss dandelion and how we work with it. And after that, we'll be armed with our new plant knowledge, and Amy will lead us out with another meditation to take us out back to our existence, armed with some tools in regards to starting our day fresh. And we'll also have time for a Q&A session if anyone has any questions or statements or any experiences you have with dandelion. So that said, Amy, please lead us into the meditation. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Diana. For those of you that didn't catch the first little bit there, Diana was just mentioning that we are on the unceded territory. Well, I am on the unceded territory of the Squamish Nation, Tsleil-Waututh and Musqueam. And Diana, just one more time, where are you?
Katsi and Kwantlen, specifically Tsleil-Waututh and Stolo.
Thank you. We just always want to honor the land that we are on before we do any events and just acknowledge this beautiful gift that we have been given to be on this land. So let's take a tall seat, pulling your glutes out from behind you. If you have a dandelion with you, just holding it in your presence and in your hands. If it feels safe for you to do so, I would like to ask you to close your eyes and feel your seated bones on the earth, connecting to earth. Gently pull that earth energy up through your spine, gentle hug of the belly towards the spine. Roll the shoulders back a couple times and soften them down. Slight tuck of the chin in so it feels like your ears are rising. And the top of your head, your crown, is reaching for the sun. We'll take about 6 deep breaths here, in and out through the nose, just breathing wide and deep down into our belly. Letting our bellies extend on the inhale and letting our bellies come towards our spine on the exhale. Moving like a wave. And last deep breath together. And deepest exhale. So I look at dandelions as such a beautiful teacher. This morning I went out to collect some and the sun hadn't been out and hadn't hit them just quite yet. So they were all closed up and they were curled together in a tight little ball. And as the sun, the warmth continued to come in and hit them, they begin to open and shine their beautiful yellow towards the sky. So as you sit here and you breathe down into your belly and you feel the expansion and the contraction, just notice how our entire earth breathes as well, just like us. There's an expansion and a contraction, an ebb and a flow, and we're all connected to that. So feeling your seated bones rooted to the earth, pulling that earth's energy up your spine once again, and holding that at your heart center. And just knowing that we are part of earth, not separate, not just on it. That we breathe and move with earth as well. So with your roots digging down deep, imagine that you are a dandelion. It just got its first hit of sun for the morning and you're beginning to unfurl and open your sunny face to the sky. To take in all that vitamin D, that earth, sun, energy. Another deep inhale here together. Deepest exhale. And just like we need sleep, the plants curl in and they rest for the evening. So just notice the rise and the fall of your chest, of your belly. The next time you're outside, notice a dandelion or a plant. Notice if it's in the morning, the afternoon, if there's sun or no sun. Notice if it's closed up or fully open. And draw back to yourself and notice if you're closed up or fully open or somewhere in between. Deepest inhale. Open your mouth, exhale. Imagining the beautiful yellow of a dandelion, bringing it into your mind's eye. Thinking What does a dandelion represent to you? Just taking another few moments here, making note or a mental note or writing down what a dandelion means to you, what the color represents to you, where you've seen them. When you're ready, open your eyes and we'll begin to talk about dandelion and then dive into another meditation at the end. So I'll give it over to Diana, who is our community herbalist and Langley Field Naturalist. And this is, I think, one of her favorite herbs, plants, weeds.
Yeah.
Depending on
on which week it is, it's always my favorite. Last week it was nettle. It's kind of hard to pick. They're all like your own children. It's hard to have a favorite. Thank you for leading us into that. I have my little dandelion leaf focusing on that. So dandelion, geez, where do you start? So what I thought I'd do is I'd give you some basic IDs going, and then how to use from the flower to the leaf to the root. And you can even use the seed. So I'll cover the entire plant, and we can use all of it. So I guess I'll start with just some basic information. So there's over 250. So the official name for dandelion is Taraxacum officinalis. So there's about 250 different varieties. Here it's just several species. So depending on what you find, I know Amy, you found out at your farm in the Kootenays there, the ones with the red stem. That's red dandelion. There also could be some grafting with other plants, and depending on the soil and the nutrients and the sun, it'll all depend on those factors as well, which will determine how it grows and what type it is. So it grows. How do you ID it properly? Because there's so many lookalikes. How you can tell is the following. So there's the Basil Rosette. So the leaves will all grow. Here, well, actually, here we go. Here's a plant. This is kind of hard to see, but sorry, this is dried. I got my neighbor to pick this the other day, but each leaf will come directly from the ground and it grows in the Basil Rosette. So each teak leaf comes from the ground individually, and there's a single stem. It's not branched. So if you see, that's how you tell it's a dandelion. If there's branches with flowers on it, that's not a dandelion. It's something else. So it's a single stem. It could be from looks like the same bunch and the same Basil Rosette, but one single stem flower. Another ID, you can use another ID tip is when you break off the stem, you'll see a milky white sap, but that contains latex. I don't depend on that for ID because most of the lookalikes also have a latex. So that's kind of a really poor, yeah, exactly. Thank you, Amy. That's a really poor ID because the majority of those lookalikes also have that. Don't use that as an ID key. So it's pretty simple. And you've got your flower. I didn't have any, all my flowers were still on that are on my lawn right now are all closed up. But if you look at Amy's flower, she's got in her hair, that's actually, that flower is just an inflorescence. It has many, many little flowers. So that's how a dandelion is built up. And of course we have the puffball on Amy's other hand, are also what we like to call here in our household, when my children are little blowy things, which is another, right now you're going to see all stages. You're going to see just a leaf, the Basil Rosette. You're going to see the closed up bud that will close up at night or when it's going to rain out, or when it's too cold and in the shade. They know how to protect themselves. And then we also have the puffball, or the blowy thing. So you can see that right now, depending where you live, in all stages. Usually there's a flush in the spring and then a flush in the fall time, all depending on your temperatures and where you live. Most people want those dandelions. This fruit, my neighbor was pulling it out because he was trying to get rid of his dandelions. I'm like, oh, can I have that? And he's like, yeah, okay, whatever, Diane, you can have it. So I should note that if you're allergic to the Asteraceae family, which some people are, or you have a latex allergy, this plant probably won't work out for you. It can cause contact dermatitis, the latex. And again, if you are allergic or highly allergic person to the plant, I wouldn't really use it to an extent. You can try it. Like everything else, you always try a little bit to see if it agrees with you and then go from there. So most dandelion, you can see this in like most commercial supermarkets being sold as is, but one thing, it'll say dandelion on the supermarket tag. It's actually not dandelion, it's chicory, the chicorum family. And there's nothing wrong with that. Chicory is fantastic. I love chicory. It has a distinctive taste, but I know there's a place downtown where I've actually bought a bunch. I'm like, wow, this is actually dandelion. But an experienced dandelion consumer will be able to tell the difference. So I think we should start. Oh, and the reason why they sell chicory and the label is dandelion is because chicory doesn't get as tough as fibrous. When this is a baby leaf. When it gets larger, and that's usually how they sell it in the commercial, it usually gets really fibrous and tough and doesn't taste, and it gets more bitter. And that's to keep the herbivores away from it. That's why the plants are designed to do that. So when the leaves get bigger and the deer come around or whatever is eating it, if you're tough and fibrous and full of more of oxalates, the deer or the herbivore is going to be like, I don't want to do that. So that's like the plant's defense mechanism. I thought that's very interesting. So, like I said, all parts are used, and I guess we can start off with the flowers. So the flowers are the first foods for the pollinators. I'm going to show you some examples of what I do with dandelion flowers. So I've got some dried right here. That, hope you can see that okay, that I dry for tea. Occasionally, it doesn't taste that great, so it looks really pretty in a tea blend. But what I also use it for is for making an oil for a balm or a salve or just a straight on oil for sore muscles. Again, if I was talking about allergies, this is not something you want to try if you're allergic to the Asteraceae family. This is strictly only the flowers only. The thing about picking flowers that you have to, and you know full well about this, you have to pick and process these flowers like ASAP. Like if you don't, the white is going to come out and you're left with nothing but puffballs. Oh, here, I'll show you some. This is what happens. I keep this for an example to show people. If you leave it too long, you're going to end up with a ball of fluff. I don't know if you can see that.
Mm-hmm.
But look at the difference between that. Sorry, guys. And this, but do you see the difference?
Yeah.
Now, having said that, you can still use that. You can still use that to make a salve. I wouldn't know about drinking it. The taste is completely fine. It's just the mouthfeel is going to be a little bit different. So again, this is excellent as a muscle rub. I mean, look at that color. Isn't that beautiful? That's just from the petals. Like that's gorgeous, and that matches the sunny disposition of a dandelion. And a lot of people will make this into salves and balms. And I use a few different blends, but this is literally just oil. You can make this yourself, and dandelion leaves. Excuse me, pardon me, dandelion flowers. And then I let that steep. You can do a sun method. You can do infusion. I can go into that, but I won't, not today. And yeah, and one thing that's really, Amy, you were saying that the flowers are all closed up. I think that's really sweet. Some people will actually take those buds, or when they first start, it's probably better to get them when they first start and they're the first flower. And they pickle them. It's very bitter. But it's a bitter fermented pickle mixture. It's very complex. But what that does is it's a great first food for the spring to wake you up after your long slumber of winter. So it sort of wakes you up. And it's a signal to all the pollinators that, hey, we've got to get things going.
Another use for the flower, Diana, is something that my parents did when I was pretty much born, like 2 years after I was born. They picked a bunch of dandelion flowers and they made dandelion wine. And we still have a tiny bit left. It's delicious. So last year when I went back to the Kootenays, I actually picked thousands of dandelion flowers and processed them to try to get the green bit out. And we have wine making in the basement. So that's another thing that you can do with dandelion flowers. I know that it's probably not out on the market because it is so hard to process them. And I know that, but the hard way.
Yeah, you can actually I've made dandelion syrup, dandelion flower syrup. I've made dandelion flower gummies from that syrup. I've also made dandelion flower jelly. It's endless what you can do with them. It's the only thing that's limiting you is your imagination. I know that there's some dandelion beer, but I think that they are using the root. I'm not 100% sure. So that's mainly what I use the flowers for. One thing some people do, besides making flower crowns from those beautiful flowers, that's super popular. I see that. But the seeds, before I forget this, those seeds in there, those can travel like 5 kilometers. If you think about that, that's crazy. So whenever I see people who are blowing those or kicking them, I still do that because I'm a child. Those little seeds can just travel so far. And if you look at the way they're designed, they're like nature's perfection. So they can just grab on, or they can grab onto your pant leg or your clothing, and they can just be dispersed. I know that they use them in nests. It's pretty adorable. Moving on to the leaf. One thing I was taught, you pull them, they should be torn off. They should never be cut. And I was told, I don't know if this is true or not, it maintains the flavor. I don't know.
I know that when you cut
but lettuce, that's what I was taught. So you just use your hand.
I know that when you cut lettuce, it turns brown. So, and then if you rip it, it doesn't turn brown right away. So maybe that has something to do with that as well.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I was taught. If you're from Eastern European Europe, like myself, my part of my culture is that dandelions are like revered, and that's something that you did. That was part of your salad. One of my earliest memories of me gathering a bouquet of dandelion flowers from my grandmother. I couldn't have been more than like 3 or 4, and I brought them to her. And I put them in a cup and I put her on her table where she was having her afternoon tea. And she ate the flower heads, and I started crying. And she started laughing. She's like, "Why? This is really delicious." And I was so upset about that. But anyway, that's one of my earliest memories of my grandmother making me cry because she ate my dandelion bouquet. So moving on to the leaf. So the leaf use, okay. I'm drinking some dandelion leaf tea. So the dandelion leaf it's worked with traditionally by herbalists for the digestive system, going down to the liver, the kidneys, and finally down to the urinary tract. So if you think about it, the dandelion flower is doing your topical, so the head, the leaf is now moving into your digestive system. At this time of the year, you're wanting to wake yourself up. So it's very high potassium. And what you're doing is you're waking your system up. Now, dandelion as a whole is cooling and drying in regards to its energetics, and it's a well-known mover. So it's very famous as a diuretic. So again, it's a mover. So in regards to your urinary tract as well as your lymph system. So if you want to get things moving after laying around all winter and like a bear, this is a way to wake your system up. Technically, the whole plant is bitter, salty, cooling, and drying. So depending on your constitution, like if I was working with someone with Amy's constitution, I might say, hey, you can use the dandelion, use a specific part, add this to warm it up, or make it, maybe you want cold and dry. I don't know, maybe you want to warm it up with a little bit of ginger for someone who's cold and damp. But when you ingest a dandelion leaf, what happens is that it starts in your salivary gland. Oh, let me back up a little bit. So how you use dandelion is it's bitter. It's very bitter, especially when they're larger. So how are you supposed to use this, or how I was taught to use it? You take a little bit before you meal, just grab one out of your garden. And now it's starting the salivary juices. When it reaches the stomach, it's going to stimulate the hydrochloric acids in my stomach, which then my pancreatic juices will then be stimulated. Then the bile from my kidneys and my liver, and down to my urinary tract, and then finally, so it's basically moving all the fluids. But this stimulates your system to start moving. And most people, our digestive systems are quite weak, especially this time of year, or even in regards to the amount of processed food that we have. We don't have a lot of live foods. This is one way of waking your digestive system to accept your food that you're about to eat. If you think of people traditionally have all their bitters, that's the same idea. We don't have a lot of bitter foods in our food system anymore. It's almost like everything is easy and sweet and easy to, like you think about smoothies and whatnot. You don't even have to chew anymore. I mean, I love a smoothie, but everything is so easy and we don't have anything that's uncomfortable, and bitters are uncomfortable. And I used to not like bitters. I was who likes bitters as a kid? Your flavor, your taste buds are so sensitive. But the bitter is so good for your digestive system, and this time of year in the springtime, we need that to wake up our system.
Diana, can you speak
in regards to dandelion?
You can go ahead, but can you speak after to the different shapes? Maybe this isn't a dandelion.
Oh yeah, so that's funny because I was asking a few people about that, and so I have so many different answers on that because I've been thinking about this a lot, and I ask every person with any sort of degree that I can find, a biologist. So soil health, amount of sun, type of plant, it's all different. I mean, if you look at this leaf, oh boy, this leaf, see how skinny and toothed that is? It's similar to the one on you're holding there. And the one I just nibbled on, totally different leaf width. Well, they're growing next to each other. How does that happen? I don't know. I think it has to do with soil nutrient and sun exposure. When I find out, you'll be the first person to know. I know that there's, again, the different varieties that look very, very similar that can be growing next to each other, but they just look like they're from the same plant. So that might be an issue. I think the one that's all more has a sharper leaf margin, I think that has to do with soil health and sun exposure. But I'm not a botanist, I'm a herbalist.
Excellent. Well,
There's been a lot of clinical studies in regards to the use of dandelion is effective as a diuretic. Now, the advantage of using a dandelion as a diuretic as opposed to a pharmaceutical one is that it does not deplete your mineral balance. As I've mentioned before, dandelions are very high in potassium. When you're using a pharmaceutical diuretic, it depletes your minerals. Now, having said that, do not discontinue your use of your diuretics as prescribed by your health professional. But you could say to them, it's like, hey, can I try this? and with working with them, as opposed to just saying, I'm just going to try this by itself, because you can, when you have a fluid balance in your body, that can cause all from circulatory issues in regards to like swelling, like edema, or your lymph nodes are swollen. I will combine cleavers with some dandelion, and I'll get that going. But again, it's balancing the minerals in your bodies, and it's you know, again, like, I want to caution people about running out and using this instead of their diuretic, because, you know, if you lower your electrolyte balance, that can lead into some cardiac issues. So please be cautioned, and just this is not intended for medical advice. It's just what it's traditionally used for. So if you don't have any issues in regards to swelling, it's a diuretic that can maintain your mineral balance. I know that when people are, you know, maybe suffering from water retention, maybe they ate too much salt, or even, you know, when people are going through their moon phases, you tend to gain, you get puffy and bloated. This is a way of reducing that while still maintaining your mineral balance. Do not use this at night unless you want to be up all night. Just FYI, use it in the morning so you can clear it out during the day. If you do it, you're gonna have a problem at nighttime if you use it at night. It's also used, the leaf is also used for low-grade inflammation before existing. So if you think that maybe you're starting to suffer from a little bit too much, maybe drinking, or a little bit too much of indulgence for your food, this is something you can do as a builder of your health. So low-grade inflammation, this is not for chronic conditions, but again, it's tonic. Dandelion is a toner, but specifically in regards to minerals, for balancing the minerals. So the way I take dandelion leaf is, again, through tea. Tea's, it's okay. But what I use it for, I make tinctures. So this is a dandelion tincture that I'm in the process of making, and that's a fresh leaf. And I won't get into how I make that today, but I use this if I can't, you know, if it's not available, and then I carry this around with me if I feel like I need a little bit of help with my digestive. Like my spleen is not the best. My digestive system is not very hot. I'm cold and damp, so this helps me before. If I can't run out and grab myself a leaf, I might take some of this if I'm not feeling my best. But you can buy these, you can make these. They're very simple to make, and then I store it. I make enough for the year for people that I work with, and then I ship them off with send them off with their little bottles of tinctures, and then they can access it all the time. A lot of people are very scared to pick dandelion leaves because they think about dogs peeing on them, and so you need to pick them away from high traffic areas. You need to pick them where they haven't been sprayed. If you have someone who has a farm or a garden where they don't spray, you can get it from there, dry them, make your tinctures, you're done. Moving on to the root. Now, Amy, there's the root right there. This is a very small root. Sometimes you can see them this long, depending how big the plant is and how old it is. So it's used traditionally as a liver tonic, sort of like the leaf. I should also mention at this time of year, like the root, you can pull it right now. I usually use the root. I pull the roots in the fall because that's where all the energy is. You know what? You should harvest that plant whenever it's convenient for you. Don't get too caught up on that. But botanically speaking, I guess you could say, or chemically speaking, if you pull the root right now, like this root is higher in regards to how it's going to help you with your digestion, as opposed to if I pulled that root in the fall, all the inulin has gone down to the root, and that will work more in regards to blood sugar issues. So I have a tendency that runs in my family, so I guess I'm kind of drawn to that. So in the fall, it was a tradition for us to go and harvest it in the fall. My mom would make us dandelion leaf tea, and as a coffee substitute for herself, but in the mornings, she actually used to make us dandelion coffee with a little bit of honey. And that's how we started our day. And if you haven't tried it, it's absolutely delicious. It's a great way for you to sort of lower your caffeine content or cut it out completely. It's what's so cool about what I love about dandelion, it's soluble in water, alcohol, so you can make a tincture out of it as well. You can make it for a tea. You can make it you can soak this in vinegar. And when you see it, if you soak it, you can actually see the inulin at the very bottom of the jar. And that is the starch that's regulating your blood sugars. And that's actually a prebiotic. And they actually, when they make probiotics that you buy off the shelf or add it to your yogurt, they actually take a water extract of that inulin and they add it to the prebiotic or the yogurt. So you can see that inulin, and that's exactly where they're getting that from. And that is a prebiotic, which helps with your probiotic, which helps your digestion. So it's all about the digestive system. It's also used to, well, it's not used to, but it can help regulate the triglycerol. Oh my goodness, I can't speak. Maybe I need another coffee. It helps regulate cholesterol and triglycerol levels in your blood. And again, that's a whole nother talk, but it's the starches that is the prebiotic, which is so helpful to our, unfortunately, our digestive systems, which not everyone suffers from it, but when people do, they certainly become very concerned with it easily because you're not digesting your food properly, and that leads to poor health. I know that there's a blend. It's called, and I'm not promoting one brand or the other, but there's a blend called Dandy Blend, and you can, or Inca or calf lib, which you can buy. If you don't want to go running around pulling out roots, you can get this. Honestly, I could get this at my neighborhood store, or you can go to the health food store and try that out. If you put it with a little bit of like whatever milk you want to use, and you can put a little bit of honey if you want, and it's delicious. You can drink it hot or cold. I prefer it hot. But usually the blend, they use dandelion root, chicory root, beetroot, and I think it's barley root. It's delicious. It's very similar, and it's almost got a nutty smell. Oh, I've got to try it. So if you wanted to harvest your own, so I always dig out the root after rain. I usually do in the fall, but again, do it whenever you want to, or you can buy. I really like this company. I'm going to say that right now. And pull it out after a rain. You use a shovel about that far away from the root and dig it out. You need to clean it right away. Okay, get that dirt off. And then what you want to do is that you want to chop it up as soon as possible, and then roast it, and then store it and grind it when you want to use it. Or you can grind it right then. Don't do it before you roast it, because it's going to make don't grind before you roast it, because it's going to make a mess of your little grinder. And then you can store it and use it whenever you want. So this can be used. Dandelion's pretty versatile, and it's pretty the incidence of contraindications in regards to contraindications. Boy, I can't speak today. Sorry, guys. Are quite low, and it's just one of my favorite plants. And I'm just trying to think of anything else I can add. I could probably go on forever, but I'll stop. I'm sorry. I could go on forever. But if anyone wants to add anything, or if anyone has a question, let me know.
Kevin has a question. Pardon? Kevin has a question, so I'm going to
sure
mute.
I'll do my best.
Unmute. There we go. Hi, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so sounds awesome. So the question, sure, I have a backyard and dandelions grow now and then. But much like what you said is like, I have dogs, so they're probably sprayed by them. So I guess my questions to you are, it's interesting, like first off, great bit of information saying that typically the grocery stores, when they say they're selling dandelions, they really aren't. That's actually new to me. But also as well too, okay, so I'm thinking from a, it's something I'd like to introduce maybe into my household, whether for myself or to the family. I think it sounds like it has a lot of benefits. Um, what are you recommending for a guy like me, just sort of introducing it? Maybe number one, um, are you suggesting as a daily supplement or as needed supplement? And also as well, like what is sort of, give me the low barrier way of getting into this. Like I see that you have the oils and stuff. That sounds great. It sounds like something easy I can do. I like, and is like, what's in terms of introducing its benefit, do we want to go, is tea better, or is the oil better? Like that sort of thing. So like how would I get started? How would I kind of I'm basically looking for the easiest way to get maximum amount of benefit. That's what I'm trying to get to here.
Got it. Okay. So great questions. So I don't know if you have kids. Do you have children?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Adult children.
So what I love about children is that pardon me?
I have adult children. My youngest is 18.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, my youngest is 15. So either yourself or your kids, I send them out. So how the greatest way to start is that. So I know you have dogs. I don't know how big your yard is. So honestly, I would go and bother someone with a garden if you're not comfortable. A lot of people make it a usage of your backyard from your pets. Then if you're not comfortable, then don't use it because you're not going to enjoy it. The energetics from that is going to come from your brain into your stomach. Sorry. So don't start there. Walk with your dogs.
Sorry, I had a bad connection. I missed a big,
okay.
Big what you said. Sorry.
So if your pets use your backyard and you're hesitant to use it, you're going to get that internally. So don't start there. What I suggest is that you talk to someone who has a garden or a lawn, or you can pick them. I went out for a walk yesterday and I was watching everyone doing their gardening. And I've lived here for a while, and I know who sprays and who doesn't. You can always tell the people who don't spray because they're everywhere. And then you can see the perfect lawns. And, I'm a Langley Field Naturalist. I don't believe that nature is a museum. I think if you want to go out to a park where dogs or people haven't sprayed, just take a leaf and taste it. You're not going to die from not washing that dandelion leaf. Right. You think about like people get so caught up on that, yet they'll go to 7-Eleven. Sorry, I shouldn't be using store names, but they'll get a cold slushy drink and they'll drink that, but then they're like, oh, I'm scared. I'm like, okay, so that processed frozen meal that you had has no chemicals in it. Okay, whatever. But just taste it and just get used to it. So what you can do is take a little container with you, or just taste a little bit, or grab a handful, shove it in your pocket, and put it on your salad. You can stir fry it, but I always recommend people starting off small. The second thing you can do is, again, if you have a community garden, because I guarantee you most people won't spray there, or if someone who has a garden, like a good friend or a relative, or make friends with a farmer. Amy mentioned that I'm a Langley Field Naturalist, and we work with a community organization, a local one, and which connects you with farms, people who have gardens. And what I suggest people do, I don't know where you live, Kevin. I don't know if you have access to go to a farm, but I tell you what, if you go to a farmer and ask them to pick their weeds, they'll be happy.
Sure.
To let you do that. What I do, I'm quite lucky. I live quite rurally, And what I've done is I've made friends with all my farmers by going onto their, like asking their permission, saying, hey, and I explain who I am and what I do. And I will make them something like an oil or bread or something made with something that I've made from their land. And honestly, I can go to a number of people's farms and forage no problem. It's just building, and what it does, it gives you a relationship of the people that you live around with. And honestly, once you start that, people will be like, oh, hey, now I will have people dropping off, like someone dropped off a load of comfrey leaves last year that I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm processing comfrey. So once you start networking like that, that's the way to start. But honestly, walk around your neighborhood, take a look. If even, and I shouldn't be condoning this, but just if you go to a park, just pick a little leaf. It's just one leaf. Take a flower. No one's going to arrest you. I shouldn't be condoning picking from parks, but if you're not area, I don't know if you're from the States or from Canada, but we call it crown land, where you're legally allowed to be picking dandelions. But just start, or you can go to like Whole Foods or whatever your local supermarket or your farmer's market where people might have dandelions, and just try it. I mean, it can be quite bitter if you're not used to it. Like these spring greens taste like nothing to me. These taste like spinach. I don't get it all. It's when it's longer in the season where it starts to get bitter, and I actually crave it now. I'm like, yes, I want that bitter taste. And it's just a way to change your taste buds and to improve your digestive health.
It is extremely bitter. This big one that I have.
I love it. I love it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I live in West Vancouver. And the thing about, but the thing about it is like the parks and everything around here are more or less pretty immaculate. And I imagine they spray them and such. So it's not necessarily something easy for me to do. And to be perfectly honest, I have so much DIY things I'm doing right now. I'm not sure how much more I want to take on. But
absolutely.
I appreciate though if there's a tea that we can do, I can have there's something again, I can just bring it, introduce it to it, and just sort of kind of get the interest going. And then if it's something that we get excited about, we can then start making the treks to start foraging and things like that. So would you say, like, as a beginner dandelion guy that I would be, just like the tea that you're showing there. So I'm looking over here because I have a bigger screen here and it's easier for me to see. It's not because I'm not paying attention. So just something like that, the roasted dandelion root, is that going to basically encompass all the benefits that you're talking about? And is leaf better than root, or is is there really do they provide different elements, or are they kind of doing the same thing, or like they're doing the same thing?
Great question. That's an excellent question. So the root, depending, like I don't know when this was harvested, and that's one of the things. And I know that's like so overwhelming to newbies. So the root is going from the liver, and it's working its way up. Okay.
Right.
The leaf is going, so it's targeting the stomach, the digestion. So that's the difference between the two. So right now, you've just woken up from your hibernation. So it's springtime, Kevin. You need to go. I think you should go to a farmer's market or probably your supermarket. I know in West Vancouver is a fantastic sort of a natural food store. You can get yourself some dandelion greens. I'm quite sure that they have it. And just don't buy the whole leaf, the whole bunch that they're going to sell you. Small, because you might have a bit of a reaction if you're not used to it. Okay.
Sorry.
A little bit before meals and just try that out. In regards to the root.
Sorry, that cut out, Diana. I think you were trying to say don't eat the whole bunch of leaves at once. Is that what you were trying to say?
Yes. Start small. Don't buy a whole lot. Just see how you get on with it first. And then the root is what I suggest in regards to sort of a fall and winter. I'm actually recovering from quite a big surgery, and Amy came and saw me. She actually brought me some of this because I wasn't able to harvest a lot of dandelion root, and it's been really hard to find the dandelion root blend that I was just speaking of lately. I don't know if it's the pandemic or what had happened, but it was very hard to find. So she very kindly gave me this. So I am concentrating my sort of my nutrition in regards to cleansing my liver, and not for a detox, but I was exposed to and had to use some heavy drugs in regards to my surgery. So I'm sort of slowly, I'm not doing this every day. Something you do every day. No, you shouldn't do everything. Everything should be in cycles. So if I want to maybe sort of concentrate on my liver, 3 months is the golden rule. So I'll be using the leaves for about 3 months. Then I'll be using this when it gets cold for about 3 months. Your body will tell you when you're like, okay, I have enough. Anything past 3 months, you're sort of looking at it's dogmatic, and too much of a good thing is always a bad idea. That's what my mom always used to say. So just start off small, make it accessible. Don't overthink it. Just see how it makes you feel and go from there.
Sure. So, and both the leaves and the root have diuretic qualities. Is that correct?
You know what? Yes, more so the leaf, the fresh leaf.
Okay.
If you think about it, I'm drinking the tea, which actually helps the diuretic, and most of the time you can get the dandelion leaf dried in the health food store. It's very, very accessible. It's very much available. Whether it's organic or not, I don't get too hung up on that. So some people do. That's up to them. If you're more comfortable getting organic products, that's up to you. But I'm a big believer in regards to accessibility for everyone, or how if all they have is what's in the park or in their front yard and they don't know if it's sprayed, just go for it. Just use your best judgment. Use a little bit. And just use what you can access. That's how you start, just to get comfortable with it. I mean, if you look at Amy, if you grab some dandelion blooms, you can get that comfortable and just have it with you while you're working, or put it on your dining room table, just a couple in a little tiny glass jar, and just see how it changes the energetics in your room. So if you're working on your computer and you just glance over and you're like, oh, look at that dandelion bloom. And in the way, then you'll start noticing. I guarantee you, Kevin, once you start working with dandelion, they're going to be everywhere, and they'll come into your life how you need them at the right time. Right. But just start off slowly, as little bits at a time, and see how it takes you from there.
Right. Okay. Groovy. Thank you.
I have one quick question, Diana, because I've noticed that some of the stems are fuzzy and some are not. Can you quickly speak to something about the fuzz?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I'm thinking it's maybe easier for something to climb up the stem to pollinate it. I don't know. I'm not a botanist, but that's my first thought. It also could be a protection mechanism. I mean, if you look at to make it easier to climb, but I don't know what would nibble on that. I mean, if it was a herbivore, like a large herbivore, that's not going to stop them. So I think it's maybe easier for it to climb, or maybe it's like, because I notice when they get really old, the stems get longer, they become smooth. Fun fact. Okay, so all week long on my little therapeutic walks, I've been trying to make a dandelion horn. So if you take off the top and those really long ones and you blow into it, it becomes a horn. I know I used to do it when I was a kid, but all week long I've been walking around my neighborhood picking dandelions and blowing into it. And my son who comes with me, he thinks I've completely lost it. But I'm like, no, I swear it works as a horn. So that's something fun. Yeah, I think it's the really long ones, and it's got the shiny stem that can kind of flatten. I think the ones that you have are too small, but so they'll usually appear near the end of the life, maybe with the puffball on it. So, fun fact: impress your kids. niece, nephew, or maybe horrify them if they're older like mine and yours, Kevin. And they'll think that you've completely lost it. I used to do that when I was a kid, and it was a lot of fun.
Cool. Well, you know what? Like my kids have completely thought I lost it long ago. So you know what? There's no surprises here. Can I just ask you another question too? I actually, so the flower itself. Sorry, I didn't even ask about the flower. Is that like, does it have a nutritional quality that is different than the leaf and the root, or a service different than that, or like, or are you saying, if you're going to consume dandelion, keep it to the leaf or to the root, depending on the time of the year, what is it? How does that part of the whole picture?
Oh yeah, great question. Sure. So it's very high in vitamin A and C.
Right.
You know what? I use it. I think because I'm so traumatized, my grandma ate my flower bouquet. I don't use it. You know what? Honestly, it's because I work with plants a lot. I will try things, and I will make them. You can use them for a decoration on a cake. They don't sugar well, and ask me how I know. But because the floret is made out of a bunch of little flowers, it's very hard and very difficult to work with in regards to preserving it, sugar, anything else like that. So in regards to consuming the flower, I guess it would be its vitamin content.
Mm-hmm.
And energetically, the flower of the sunflower is the energy is happiness, and it's the first thing that appears.
Right.
I know there's a lot of flowers that appear, like right now, dead nettle, like all the purple flowers, dead nettle, ground ivy, vinca flowers. But that is the first yellow one, and it's a signal to everyone. All the pollinators say, "Hey, Earth is awake. Start prompt." So it's basically happiness, because things are new, things are starting, so things are happy, and it's more of a feast for your eyes, if anything. They taste okay. The green part at the bottom of the flower, that's if you want to eat those. You can eat them in a salad, but if you get rid of the green part, because that's where the bitterness is, that's where it starts, and it's very bitter. And if you're not used to it, you'll be like, "Whoa." If you look underneath there, the very bottom petals, they're almost a green brown, and those are okay. But those petals, people usually peel those off because they don't like the bitterness. I like the bitterness, so it's up to you. It makes a really pretty. If you pull off the petals, it's very pretty for a food finisher in regards to a salad or a rice or pilaf or something. It's just sort of again, it's a feast for the eyes and maybe your headspace. They taste okay. If you were to consume a lot, they taste almost nutty. I don't know. That's the flavor profile I get. I don't know if someone, taste is so individual, but that's what I get from dandelions. But
the root is
that's what I use it for. I use it mainly topically. Oh, it's delicious.
The tea,
honestly, the leaf
nutty.
Absolutely. I wouldn't use like the leaf dried for anything other than tea. It tastes dried. It tastes like yeah, it doesn't. I mean, if you have dried, you want to try it. If you want to put some honey with it, some people I just eat it, or excuse me, I just drink it just neat, no sweeteners, because I want to taste the actual leaf.
Yeah.
And if you when you purchase it commercially, you can there's so many different tastes. Don't expect it to taste the same. They're all going to be bitter, but they're all, depending on where they're grown and how they're grown, they're all going to taste a little bit different. It's very, very interesting. It's sort of like fish. You're going to taste like tropical fish. You're going to taste a certain way, whereas opposed to northern fish, you're going to taste. That's a really weird analogy. I don't know why I picked up on fish, but that's how I can explain it. It's going to taste completely different depending on the species and where it was harvested for, whether it's fresh or dry.
Right.
So, yeah.
Perfect.
If you don't mind, I have further questions.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I mean, we can keep going. We're almost at the hour mark, but why not keep rolling?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I think my perspective has been, and I understand that people using dandelions and salads and things like that, but I think typically the consensus of people is it's looked at more as a weed, right? Like get those things out of my lawn, what have you, right? Like it's, or when it goes random or wild. Um, so there's that perspective. Are you like, do you know of, or yourself or whatever, actually growing it with intention, like in a garden or in a pot, and just sort of having it reoccur year after year? Because like you said, I imagine if you allowed it to go its full range of the year and perhaps let it come back, the root will obviously get longer, and obviously perhaps produce a bigger plant or what have you. I mean, am I right in thinking this? I imagine those who are making the oil at scale and selling it in stores, they must have literally fields of it. But I'm kind of quite curious on that,
Mhm.
the actually growing it with intention, with this sort of that end result, as opposed to random finding it, what have you. Do you have any thoughts, experience on that at all?
Sure. Actually, in regards to planting it, Richter's is a Canadian company based in Ontario. They actually sell chicory and dandelion seeds. So yes, you can grow it intentionally. Here's the thing. So dandelion was brought over by the Europeans as a foodstuff, and then it got out of control. Same with
Right,
blackberry. Happy
right,
accidents. So it's turned as
sure,
invasives. That's
yeah,
actually my specialty. I work with invasive plants. I kind of don't like the word invasive, but they're here. I
mhm,
work with them. Whatever, what are you going to do with them? So, in regards to growing them intentionally, weeds, especially dandelions, and they're like babies. They do what they want when they want. You can't tell them nothing. So, when a baby wants to come, you can do all the planning in the world, but they're going
right,
to do what they want, and it
right,
may grow, may not. So you might have one that shows up one year and then it'll go away.
ah,
It might show up in a
okay,
different spot in your garden or your plant pot another day. So do not depend on it actually doing what you want. It's kind of like mushrooms. They're have to be very careful. And in my experience, intentionally, for oil, it's not something you see a lot because it's such a labor intensive
right,
project, just like the dandelion wine
Mhm.
that Amy was talking about. I'm sure it would be very popular. And I believe in Europe and Eastern Europe here, you can get it commercially, but it's so labor intensive. It makes it very expensive and hard to profit off of it. So it's sort of the interest, not so much. I know that like medicinals, the reason why I like them is because they really, you can go back to where it was grown, how it was grown, the people who harvest it, and you can map it all up. But that's an example of where someone does it farms and then they sell to traditional medicinals. I'm not 100% sure on that particular product, but in regards to growing it, you know what, you can, but it will get out of control and your neighbors will hate you if they're the type that really want the perfect lawn. I'm guessing
hmm,
from where you live, Kevin, there's a lot of perfect lawns. It's funny, when I walk, I can see perfect lawn, not perfect lawn, perfect
yeah,
lawn, perfect lawn. Yeah. And once you start looking, and when you go for your walk in the next couple of weeks, look at those lawns and see who's not using like a weed killer. Um, I grow some in my front lawn. My husband hates the fact that he has dandelions growing in his lawn. He
yeah,
hates it, but he won't use it. And he's like, "That's it. This year, this is the year I'm gonna do it." I'm like, "No, you're not gonna do it because I have to consume those." And so he's in it, right? And again, they're very hard to control. You can
sure,
grow them. I don't know. That's up to you if you want to grow them. It's sort of an individual thing. Some people want to grow them, but let them do what. It's your own property. Who cares what you would do on your own property? But you're probably going to get the ire of your neighbor
hmm,
who might use a weed killer. Remember, that's going to come onto your property as well.
yeah,
So that's why you can try and put some in a pot. You can take some seeds and see what happens just for fun. But again, they may or may not set, and you don't really need to purchase them commercially
I
unless you want to.
put some of the seeds in a pot twice in a row in a year, and none of them took, but there's now some in our lawn. And I know that we don't use weed killer in our lawn, obviously, because they're now growing in our lawn. I don't know if my landlord loves that, but it is what it is. And I use them for salads. So.
Well, that's the thing you were saying, that
you know, they will die back pretty very soon, within a couple of weeks. Sorry, I interrupted you, Kevin. Please go ahead.
No, well, I was just commenting on what Amy was saying, is that well, if you know, like you said, if the spores or the seeds can travel 5 kilometers, I mean, the reality is I guess, you know, anything is possible as soon as you introduce them in your area, right? Or introduce them into your home. If you're trying to grow them or what have you, you could end up, you know, dandelions in the whole neighborhood, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I'm pretty sure we've all seen a dandelion coming up through a crack in the concrete. Fun fact.
Yeah.
That crack is not there. That plant caused that crack. Think about that. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
So, you know, that's another thing in regards to resiliency. Like, I know everyone likes things that are organic and you know, in a perfect world, but I will purposely grab some leaves in a not so perfect environment, because I kind of want a little bit of that hardness and that resilience and that less than perfect growth in my medicines, in my food, because if you make everything too perfect, then you get weak. And I want some of that plant in my medicine, because that's going to fortify me. I remember going to work, oh my goodness, this was 10 years ago. I remember I was in the left turn lane off of Highway 10 Surrey, and they were doing a whole bunch of road construction. I look out my window and there's a tomato plant growing in this mound of dirt. And I was like, it was about this tall, and I was like, damn, look at that tomato plant. So I kept on thinking about it. So my mom, she was a herbalist and a naturopath, and I told her about this plant. She's like, you need to go and get that tomato plant. I want those seeds. So, and I was like, how am I supposed, like, I'm gonna get run over getting this tomato plant. But you know, I went to go get it and they had taken it away. I was like,
oh goodness.
Right, but you know, that's just an example. But I want that resilience in me. I want it in my medicines, because if you make something too perfect, then you get weak. Yeah. So it's all very well, but if you don't worry too much about where you're getting it from, just a little bit will do you, and then just try it out and just expand your plant horizons from less than ideal situations in regards to growing conditions, because if you make everything perfect, you're just setting yourself up for a big fall. But
well, you know, like personally, I appreciate that 100%, because I think, you know, at least in our household, you know, we try to, you know, buy as much organic and such as possible, whatever. But, you know, what you're saying, you're preaching to the converted, in the sense that if it's growing anyways and it hasn't been sprayed, I think the value, at least what I understand, is the value is that if I'm picking it right off right there, its pranic value is incredibly high versus something that might have been organically grown, packaged, shipped, sat on a shelf for X amount of time, and it's lost all its prana. So like I totally get it. And it's kind of like, okay, do we, like, what's more valuable, having, you know, the high prana value of that food, or is it just cut or grown in perfectly ideal conditions? And I tend to gravitate more to the, you know, the freshness or the pranic value, or how quickly it is off of that plant or that source or what have you, right? So I totally relate to what you're saying.
Yeah,
our backyard is full of beautiful weeds and
but like, I work with an organization that does food security programs, and one thing I take great issue with taking the humble dandelion and turning into this, oh, it has to be organic. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but I've seen this happen. I was raised very, I guess, holistically back when it wasn't cool, and I had to wear the Mexican craft ends. Amy's heard this story before, but I did all those things before they were cool. And having grown up with that, and I've seen people like, oh, it's got to be organic, or it should be coming from this. No, you know what? If you feel like you can't afford dandelions, then there's something really wrong with the system.
Sure.
And I've seen this. Whatever the plant is, it's popular this year, or whatever's on the food trend. But if someone who has is not working, or has a lot of bills, just go out to the park, grab yourself some dandelion, just wash it off. It'll be fine. Trust me on that. It'll be perfectly fine. So there's a lot of stigma, and there's a lot of
kids. So.
Hmm?
I said we've all eaten yellow snow as kids at one point. So little dog pee is not gonna kill us.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Just wash it, it'll be fine.
Cool.
Perfect. Well, if there's no more questions, we'll end with a very short little meditation. And yeah. Thank you, Diana, and thank you, Kevin, for all the questions. And if anyone does have any further questions, if you are watching this at a later time, feel free to get a hold of myself or Diana on Instagram. She's Mrs. Localvore, and on Instagram, I'm Live Beautifully Yoga. If you have any questions for Asana at Home or Kevin, you can find him at Asana at Home. That's all on Instagram, and then our emails are all linked there, so if you need that. But let's just end with a tiny little meditation and end with our theme song for the day that I found, which I quite like. So take again a tall, comfortable seat. If you have a dandelion around you, just hold on to it. If you've just freshly cut it, just notice that stickiness that the latex, that white milky bit, produces between your fingers. And we're just going to take a deep inhale together. Deep cleansing exhale. And just connecting to the energetics of the plant. Just noticing how radiant, how yellow, how bright and happy this plant is. This herb, this weed, whatever you want to call it. It opens to the sun, and it looks like the sun. And as we root down into the earth, we think about the dandelion's roots and what areas in our body that helps. Our root is connected to the earth, and the root of the dandelion helps that area. If you've ever tasted the taste of a dandelion, just imagine a bitter taste in your mouth right now. Imagine your salivary glands just producing saliva in your mouth. You get that watery sensation. And dandelions don't have that much of a smell. But next time you're out, pick a dandelion flower and take a sniff. You'll probably get a little bit of pollen on your nose. Watch out for the bugs and the ants because they're always hanging out. Just letting that cleansing, vibrant spring, radiant energy wash over you from the crown of your head, through your mouth, down to your organs, your digestive area, your root. When we clean the inside, we clean the outside. So using our dandelion internally will help to change the radiance of our skin. So just imagine your glowing skin, glowing like the shining, glowing flower of a dandelion. And take one more deep inhale here. And deep exhale. Now imagine that you're holding one of those puff balls with all the dandelion seeds, and take one big inhale and open your mouth, exhale, blow all those little seedlings out into the world 5 kilometers away for them to spread their dandelion medicine to all that need it. One of the biggest joys as a kid is going around popping the tops off dandelion heads, flowers, and then blowing their seeds everywhere to create more. So next time you look at a dandelion, come back to that childlike feeling. And that's how we need to connect to nature, with play, through creativity and exploring what's in our backyards. Last deep inhale together. Deep exhale. And gently flutter your eyes open. And I just want to give a big thank you to Asana at Home for hosting this Earth Day event, for our special guest, Mrs. Locavore, for giving us all the knowledge about dandelions and our connection to Earth. And go outside and have a beautiful Earth Day. Look out for our friend the dandelion, and yeah, enjoy. There is you can donate to the Chair a Tree Foundation. The link is in my bio as well as on Asana at Homes. And if you have any questions for us afterwards, feel free to let us know.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We'll play our beautiful dandelion song that I found just to exit